Hello, I am your host, Kathy Chester, and welcome to the Move It or Lose It podcast, a podcast about all things that move the mind, body, and soul. The Move It or Lose It podcast is for information, awareness, and inspirational purposes only. I am not a doctor, and I don't even play one on TV, so please consult your doctor before making any medical decisions. The views expressed by advertisers, guests, or contributors are their opinions and not necessarily the views of the Move It or Lose It podcast. Hi, it's Kathy at MS Disrupted. Welcome to another show of Move It or Lose It. And today I have Laura Hancock. So you might remember her. I've had her on before, and she also did our webinar last year. And I'm very excited to have her. Laura has moved on now to the Cleveland Clinic. So welcome, Laura. We're very excited to hear all your new stories and what it's like over in Cleveland.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Hello. So Cleveland now, how's the weather there?
So this is my first lake effect snow this
Ooh.
morning. So that was fun.
Yes.
There were some whiteout conditions for a little while, but good. I actually love snow, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Cleveland's great. It's definitely a change from where I was living before, but it's a nice place to live, and the people that I work with here just can't be beat, honestly.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm enjoying that.
I love that. So for everybody that doesn't know what you do, tell us what it is that you do at the Cleveland Clinic.
So I'm a clinical neuropsychologist. So that means, so I have a PhD in clinical psychology, but I don't do any therapy. I don't treat conditions like depression or anxiety through therapy or some other way.
Right.
What we do is examine brain function. So we are looking to see whether a person has difficulties with learning and remembering new information, difficulties understanding language, difficulties paying attention to things, difficulty with speed. So there's lots of different cognitive skills, and basically what we do are thorough cognitive evaluations.
Yeah.
And as you know, I specialize in MS, but I do see a variety of people in my clinic, not just people with MS.
Sure. And with I had gotten cognitive testing at Michigan, which I've really enjoyed being able to go there. And they've come a long way. And I really enjoy being able to go somewhere where I can have something like we talked about. I love the Cleveland Clinic. It just I couldn't continue there because where I'm
It's
located.
a long drive.
It is. And being able to do the televisits are awesome, but I'd have to be somewhere in Ohio. So it just wasn't going to be, long-term for me. So I did end up going to Michigan, which I do love that they've come a long way from just a teaching hospital. And so being able to get cognitive testing, I still didn't think that time, and I want to redo it. It just wasn't at the best time. And I felt like I kind of had a younger guy doing it that didn't really know. At one point, he was like, "Are you trying?" And I just started crying. I'm like, "Am I trying?" I'm like, I had to take a break because I'm like, it's actually extremely heartbreaking to look at these questions that you could have answered, a while ago. And now you're looking at like, is this English or I'm like, that's not what you ask someone with one of these autoimmune diseases. Maybe you need to go talk to your professor or whoever taught you and go back over this again. So I know how important it is. And so I don't feel like I was able to accurately test well because I was so flustered. And I'm not sure how much that has to do with it.
It can absolutely. If you're having a bad day, if you didn't sleep well the night before, if you're just not feeling yourself, it can absolutely influence, because you have to bring a lot of energy to that experience in order to do what's being asked of you, because it's very draining.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
for sure. It was absolutely, but it's so important. I think now that I'm working so closely with the MS community, I realize how many have not ever had it done, whether they've been 30 years or, a couple of years where they don't even know that's a thing. And I definitely noticed, we talked about this earlier, that when you're in a place that you have to do everything yourself, you have to piece everything together. And okay, where do I get this doctor? Okay, now I need a an eye specialist. Where do I get
Yeah.
that from? Rather than being at a hospital where it's all connected, like Cleveland Clinic and something like that, it becomes very difficult. I remember one of the places looked on Google, and I'm like, well, I can do that. I want to know who you suggest, who you want me to go to. Do you have any literature about what the patient said? Anything you guys talk? And
Yeah.
there wasn't anyone. So it is something that I think patients have to understand is, who are they sending you to? And ask. And unfortunately, it is hard to advocate always, but advocate for yourself and see what's their feet. How long have they been doing this? What are
Yeah.
their ratings?
I think
So
building up that comfort with advocating for yourself in the healthcare environment is a critical skill. Even if
yeah.
you're working within one healthcare system,
Mhm.
everyone is busy.
Right.
I'm not trying to make excuses for providers. I'm
Right.
just saying, everyone is doing as much as they can.
Right.
And there's also, the electronic medical record has been a benefit to all of us in
Right.
innumerable ways. I mean, I couldn't even list all of the ways that it's been a benefit, but it can also be a little bit of a drawback because now
Sure.
there's so much information available. It's hard
Yeah.
to sift through and find the most critical things for an individual
Gosh,
person.
yeah. Right. I
You know
can't
what I
even
mean?
imagine.
So
Yeah.
if you come to that appointment and you
Uh,
have kind of these bullet points of like,
mhm.
this is my history. This is when I was
Right.
diagnosed. I also have this condition. Today, I want to talk about this and this and this.
Right.
That can be really helpful, but it's hard because in that, you come into that environment and there's the doctor is the one with the power,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you want to be a good patient.
Right.
And you do that, people do that in different ways, but I think being
Right.
a good patient is also being clear about the questions that you have
Yeah.
and speaking up when something doesn't feel right. But it's
Right.
hard.
Yeah, it is. And I often tell like patients and clients, there's a difference between being assertive and being a complete bitch.
Yes, there
We
is.
don't have to go in, and I get it. I mean, as a patient, I get angry too. I want answers and I'm not getting them. We're frustrated, but we can't go in like, it has to be that relationship where you can say, I'm really, really frustrated and I don't want to come across that I'm mad at you. I just feel like I have to have some answers because I'm in so much pain. And so if I come across that I'm short, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to. I'm just so angry. And I think that helps them understand where you're at, and they don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm getting attacked and I don't know
Right.
why. Help me understand.
Right.
So
I actually think that's a really good soundbite. Like what you just said, that was great modeling for how you can have that conversation
yeah,
with a healthcare provider in an assertive way that is not aggressive or rude.
right. Yeah. Having had it for over 20 years, I think I've got it down now.
Yeah,
So
you have a lot of practice.
yes, exactly. Well, I wanted to, like I said, sent you that funny word, that autocorrect. I saw you in the interview that you did, and I loved it. And coming out of COVID, I just was wanting to know what you've seen coming out of it, and in your area, what are you seeing patients now coming out of that? How are they affected? How are you seeing that?
So, I in my job here, I don't do any psychotherapy. So I think there's really two kind of major trying to think of the word that I want to say, two major issues that a
Mhm.
neuropsychologist or psychologist might uh, might find with people who have experienced COVID. One of them is complaints about changes in cognitive skills.
Right,
Well, that's the one that I'm dealing with more in my
right,
clinic, but I think psychologists also and other healthcare providers are also dealing with psychological factors that are
right,
related to this global stressful thing that we all experienced.
right,
And many of us, had periods where we were very isolated from people
Yeah.
important to us, where we couldn't get healthcare services that we
Hmm.
needed, or we couldn't get them as quickly as we wanted
Right.
them or needed them. So I think there's sort of two prongs here.
Right.
And I think, I'm hearing more and more recently where my patients are sort of telling me, I think COVID really had an emotional impact on me that I'm just now realizing, that it was
Interesting.
sort of it was affecting their mental health, but they
Uh-huh.
didn't know it. And they were
Sure.
just feeling angry and frustrated
Right.
and depressed, but not really knowing they were feeling
Right.
that way. And
Yeah.
maybe it was affecting some of their day-to-day things. Maybe it was affecting, one of my patients recently said, now that I'm thinking about it differently and have a different perspective, I think I wasn't taking care of myself in the
Right.
same way that I did
Sure.
before, even though maybe I never actually got sick with COVID.
Hmm.
Maybe I was lucky enough not to have a family member die of COVID,
Right.
but my life still changed, and I didn't realize it was that significant at the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I
I
think
think
that's
that's
one,
very fair.
yeah, and I
I
think
don't
that's,
think we had time to even like, really sit down and figure out. Everything was so heightened. And I don't think a lot of us got to really, I mean, gosh, how did doctors and nurses get to, I mean, you're still going, it was never really time to figure out what was going on. And we were separated for loved ones and friends. And I do understand that being sick for so long and being separated, it was this very lonely feeling. And still with it on the rise again, it's like now mask back on and this back on and everything. And so it feels like not again. And I'm flying out tomorrow to go to Colorado. And I'm glad that this COVID is done, but my gosh, it hit me really hard. And, so I'm like, I'm just going to wear 4 masks. I don't know. I just don't know what to do. And,
yeah.
but it was, it was scary. It was like, I had it before and it didn't really, I was fine. And my husband was really sick. And then I got it this time and he actually got it. He gave it to me. So we're just going to blame him.
So it's
No,
his fault. Okay.
it's his fault completely. So he got it and then he got over it quick and I just could not. And I just kept having fevers and just was delirious. But it was just very interesting how it affected me so much cognitively. And I could look at something and I was like, I don't know what anything is. I can't tell you what that is. I know it's eventually I was like, bread, that's what that is. But it was like there were no words.
Mm,
And so I found that to be it's starting to come back a little bit. But those were my fears. Like, will I be able to do a podcast? Will I make sense? Will I be able to teach? And those were my concerns I
yeah.
had.
And then that fear can make those symptoms worse, just
Sure.
alone, the fear alone,
Right.
and can make
Absolutely.
really affect your mental health.
Yeah.
So what we're
So,
seeing in terms of the cognitive outcomes
uh,
of COVID, that is a much more kind of messy picture,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So part of it is we haven't, I know it sounds silly because COVID happened, in 2020, so it's been 3 years, almost 4 years, but we don't have enough information yet because some of the studies are telling us, yes, there are definitely um, cognitive side effects of COVID, for lack of a better
Right.
phrase. And then other studies say, no, there are no cognitive side effects of COVID. And
Okay.
not enough of the studies are looking at the information in the most optimal way. So
Okay.
for instance, some of the studies just do a survey and they don't even confirm if the person had COVID. So they're just relying on someone saying, "Oh yeah, I had COVID.
Right.
I had a runny nose, so I probably had COVID."
Right.
So it's things like that where we
Yeah.
we really need to kind of tighten it down and look to
Yeah.
see with,
I think there was a lot of that. I heard a lot of people saying that through, like, I think I did, or I think I do. And I'm like, well, you probably need to know. And I mean, with what I do, I was like, well, you can't come in. unless you test and because I
Yeah.
can't have you coming in. I can't do that to my other patients. Now I'm a doctor. But
Why not?
so, right. So I felt like during the whole pandemic, they were asking me, I'm like, I say on my podcast, I'm not a doctor, but they really did feel like, well, I can't get a hold of mine. So you're going to have to be. I'm like, I give you no advice. I give you
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that gets scary.
It
But
does. It does. But,
yeah,
so in terms of the research, we're just not quite there in terms of the
sure.
quality of the evidence that we have.
Yeah.
There does
You had
seem to
said in
be,
there, oh, I'm taking over when
no,
you're
go
on the
ahead.
ICU, because I thought that was interesting. Being in the ICU and that you said that, or they were intubated, that you are seeing
Yeah,
more of
so
that.
it seems like from the limited number of better
Mm,
quality studies that have been done, it seems like if there is going to be some cognitive effect of COVID, it's more likely to be seen in people who were, uh, for lack of a better way to phrase it, were sicker.
right,
So if a person had, some people who had COVID, I mean, even this, you were saying like the
right,
2 times you had it were very different.
right.
So if a person has COVID that is
Mm,
similar to a head cold, they never had trouble breathing, they never had any difficulty with their heart function,
right.
uh, et cetera, the likelihood that a person like that would have lingering cognitive effects is very, very low.
Yeah, for
However,
sure.
if someone was sick enough that they needed to be intubated, which then suggests, well, maybe was there a period when their brain wasn't getting enough oxygen,
Sure.
something
Sure.
like that, then the likelihood would be a little bit different, but we still
Yeah.
have a lot to learn about that. So that's even me saying that is very tentative.
Yeah.
So
What have
I
you
think we're going
seen
to
with
learn a
the,
lot in the next year or so because I
yeah. Oh,
think
I
people are doing
agree.
this research right now.
Yeah. And have people come to be more honest, and have you been able to have more in like in doing like testing and coming to that are able to speak more freely about what you're finding?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Are people able to come forward? Are you having enough people to come, and were
Oh,
you
I
able to
see.
do more of a study where I think
Yes.
people were not as open about it before?
Yeah, and I think, most people, as you know, like most people have never heard of what a neuropsychologist is,
Right.
and they hear that term, they're like, oh, what's that?
What
Like,
is that?
what is
Yeah.
that? What am I going to have to do if I
Right.
go to that appointment? And it can be very intimidating
Sure.
just to go.
I
So,
always tell
so I
people
think that's part of
go.
it.
It's so good for you.
I mean, I'm biased. I agree with
Yeah.
you. I think for the general recommendation that groups of experts have made is for
Yeah.
people with MS, we want to do an
Yeah.
initial evaluation as soon as we can. So,
Yes.
if we had enough neuropsychologists and if you
Yeah.
had enough money to pay all your copays, I would love it if
Yeah.
everyone came the day after they got diagnosed.
Right. And so
Um,
many times, I mean, gosh, Laura, I didn't even know about that until year 15. I
oh,
mean, I had
really?
never even been told that,
Yeah.
never even been talked about that. And
I
so
think the
it's
attitude
interesting.
about, we've known for a long time that people with
Mhm.
MS can have cognitive um, symptoms,
Yeah.
but we've known for a long time,
Yeah.
neuropsychologists have known for
Right.
a long time, but and physicians too. But I think, when if you have a group of people with MS who have a lot of physical disability or physical
Right.
symptoms, they are having trouble keeping their jobs. They're having, sometimes you can kind of just get focused on trying to help with these other things, and then
Yes.
that goes on the back burner,
Yes.
and I think everyone means to send their patients to see a
Yeah.
neuropsychologist if they're concerned about cognitive issues.
Yeah.
But the
It's
logistics of
funny
that are
because
also
that was my
challenging.
first thing. And I've really not had physical issues. Like I can still walk well. I can't run a half marathon anymore, but I can do a lot of other things. So I find
Yeah.
that to be interesting. But I'm so
Yeah.
glad. And I always tell, I have my neuropsychologist at Michigan. And actually it was referred to me by again, see, it's not all there. I'm still getting like by our friend at Johns Hopkins, not there. The word's
Abby
not there.
Hughes,
No, other one. Abby
Megan
Hughes.
Fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's Megan told me about Evan at she told me like if I can get in. So she really helped that because he was supposed to be really good. And I was like, the waiting list was huge. So that was a really great thing. And I just have loved him. I mean, it really
Good.
helps me connect like, okay, where are we with that? And what could
Good.
we have? And really like gives me props because you get down about yourself often with it. And so he'll kind of take me back before I go too far ahead and say, okay, what were the things that you did that right on your values? What did you do that were like the great things that you did before we go on and you keep bashing yourself. So it's really good about like,
That's
helping me look at the cognitive things and the
and
things I
keep
did
things
right.
in perspective that need
Yes.
to be in perspective, like
Yes.
your accomplishments and your strengths.
Yes. Because we don't do that. We focus on, oh, this went wrong. I did this wrong. I did this wrong. And it's very good to have that because mentally and emotionally, as you know, we tend to be one of the most depressed people. So
Yep.
it can really get to us if we don't have someone like kind of reframing our thoughts. So it's what you guys do is so crucial for us. And that's why I do this a lot because so many patients don't know. So it's important.
It is
So
important. I'm glad you
yes,
do it.
thank you. I'm glad you do it. So, like I said to you, you are very respected in your field. I know because
Nice of
I
you to say.
tell people a lot about you and I get lots of things that, yes, she is very respected. I wanted to tell me about why you wanted to go this path. What is it that about MS and about autoimmune stuff that you were like, this is where I want to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it really comes down to the people I met along the way. So I was in graduate school getting my PhD, and I was,
Is that
working.
simple?
Yeah, I wish I wish it was. But I was working, my mentor. So in a PhD program, you often have one mentor who you do research with the whole time you're there. So I was working
Mhm.
for him, and we were doing projects with people who have MS. And I
Mhm.
went to clinic with the neurologist to talk to people, see if they were interested in participating in whatever study it was that we were doing.
Right.
And I just, time after time after time, was so impressed with the people I met and the stories they told me. And what I was impressed with was how resilient they
Yeah.
were, how compassionate they were about other people with MS that they didn't know.
Yeah.
They would selflessly volunteer a lot of time. Some of our
Yeah.
studies, because it involves cognitive testing, it's
Mhm.
not short.
Right.
And they would be willing to do it and willing to do challenging things that frustrated them
Yeah.
because it would help other people. And I was
Absolutely.
just so impressed with that. Overall, each person I met was so lovely and so compassionate and thoughtful, resilient, powerful, strong. I mean, I I was blown away with
Yeah.
how um, positive this group of people was, despite the
Mhm.
fact that they were living with a chronic illness. They were
Yeah.
thriving as
Yeah.
much as they could. I mean, I can't tell you how many um, decked out like walkers and wheelchairs and
Yeah.
streamers and like stickers and bright lights and honking a
Yes.
horn down the hallway.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is it. This
Yeah.
is what
That's
I'm gonna do.
awesome. It really is. It's like, and back in the day when I first was diagnosed, that never happened. You didn't
Right,
talk about it. You were silent because of fear of losing your job, of losing your kids, everything. You just did not discuss it.
right, right.
And through the years, it's been so exhilarating. And at first I was nervous. I was like, I had my own little groups that I did at the clinic. I did, I would always work with new patients because they were nervous and I was so high functioning. I could talk to them about like, breathe, it's going to be okay. That was kind of, where I fit then. And I would always go and guest speak at different things, but it just wasn't something we did, you didn't do it on Instagram. You didn't do
Right.
podcasts, that wasn't anything we did. And so looking at it now and having so much support, I mean, I remember, a good friend of mine here that I met through just different, what I do here. I ended up going surprising him on the walk, and it was so neat because he's about 40 minutes away, and it was able to do that, and it is so much support and love, and there always is. And even with getting sick, I mean, I had love like just lavished on me, and people that I don't even know, and through the MS community. And that's just how it is. It's like when someone's down, it's just they just kind of rally and pick you up.
Yeah, I think it's the community for me.
Yeah.
And then so I had already decided that this was what I was passionate about and what I wanted to spend time doing.
Hmm.
And so a few years, so I started working with people with MS in 2008 when I started
Okay.
my PhD program. And around about, I think it was 2016 or 17.
Okay.
So I was already in independent practice doing my
Uh,
thing. And my aunt and uncle told me that my uncle had MS.
okay.
And
Wow.
he'd had it for several years
I
and
don't
had
think we've
been,
ever talked about that.
I don't think we have.
Wow.
He had it for several years and didn't feel comfortable sharing that with other
Right.
people. So then it just became even more important to
Yeah.
pursue this work and to do what I can to help people with MS, whether
Sure.
that's in, my actual job or whether that's, coming today and having this conversation.
Right.
And hopefully that's going to help somebody
Yeah.
just, decide to go get
Yeah.
some mental health care or get a
Right.
neuropsychological evaluation or inspire them to take the time and effort to take care of themselves
Right.
and
Right.
put themselves number one. Or, I do a lot of work with Can Do MS, the National
Yes.
MS Society,
Yeah.
I want to try to contribute to the community as much as I
Yeah.
can.
Which is
I,
so appreciated. I do a lot of work with Can Do MS too, and that's probably one of my favorites. I really do enjoy working with them.
yeah, they're lovely, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
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 But I think, the older you get, the more you realize how lucky you are
Yes.
in a variety of ways for just based on different things that have happened in your life and the things that you see other people go through
Mm,
and the hard challenges other people go
for
through.
sure.
And I feel very blessed and feel like I want to give back and pay that
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, for sure. And you do. And I don't know if you see this more often, but I've always believed it's much harder for a male with MS to come forward and discuss it. And I'm always so honored, and I always take it very cautious and very gentle when a man will come to me and say, I really need to work on some things. And I haven't moved my body in a long time, and I'm
Yeah.
terrified. And
Yeah.
typically I think it's I don't want to do something because I can't do what I did before. Where females will typically say, okay, I'm frustrated, but I need to move. So I know this is going to look different, but I want to do it. Where men will continuously say to me, I can't do it. I can't play football. I can't do this. This isn't working out. No, it's just different. It's working out, but we're going to do it different. So
Yeah.
I'll give them some more difficult things, and they'll say, I burnt. I like had that exercise burn. I'm like, you will get that. We're just going to do it different. And so it's just, a different way of moving and stuff.
But just as well as I do how hard that is. It's hard
Yes.
to make that pivot,
Yes.
because um, one of the I think I said this to you recently. Um, one of the most important things I think we can do as people, whether you have MS or not, is to get comfortable with writing your own rules for
Yes.
things, including something like exercise.
Right.
I think we get in this mindset of exercise looking a certain way or having a
Yeah.
certain definition. There,
Right.
there is no definition for
Right.
exercise in terms of like how much time is spent, the
Right.
intensity, that kind of thing. But we think that
Right.
there is because we've
Right.
written that for ourselves in our
Yeah.
youth,
Absolutely.
So as we age, as things change, when you have a back injury, when you
Right.
have, or you develop MS and you're having some balance problems,
Exactly.
rewrite that rule, rewrite it
Exactly.
completely.
For
And it's
sure.
hard to do, but it's going to bring you so much peace. You're going to
Absolutely.
give yourself so much grace if you're
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
And be
And
like
I
you said,
love that. Yes.
it's not that it's not exercise, it's just
Right.
different.
Absolutely. And once they do it, it's like, they feel so good. But so another one I wanted to ask you is um you talked about, can you share, I wanted you to share some interesting things that you experienced so far with your move and your new position.
So, um, one of the nice things about this position is I get to work with another MS neuropsychologist.
Yeah.
Her name is Dr. Rachel Galiotto,
Uh-huh.
and we are doing some research projects together. We are making some plans for different things that we're going to do in
I
clinic
may have to
together.
interview both of you.
Yeah, I think you should. She's
That'd be
great.
awesome. I'd love to
Uh,
hear both of you what you
I've
guys are
known her
doing.
for a while, and so it's nice to just get back in,
Yeah.
more constant communication.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have, I worked with a great team in my old job
Yeah.
and I miss them.
I'm
But it
sure.
is really nice to have someone else you work with who's interested in the exact same thing
Right.
you're interested
You
in.
can nerd out together.
Yes.
I love
And
that.
we make plans together and we kind of divide
Right.
and conquer,
Yeah.
which is great. So
Well, for sure.
I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah.
And the other neuropsychologists here are all lovely humans,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of fun together, which
Yeah.
makes coming to work a lot of fun.
I noticed that when I was there, and I'd been there several times before I finally was like, I can't do this. But I really noticed that, like going from different spots to different spots, they really enjoyed each other and had fun.
Yeah.
And and I got really choked up, several times because of where my body was changing. And, they made me like feel like it's going to be okay. And then I called them when I made that switch and I'm like, I did this. And they were like, we know him. It's okay. You're going to be okay. It's going to be a long haul. Let's see if this works for you. And, now we're on to a different thing, but it's such a comforting place. So I love that you're there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I
Yeah.
think, the way they have things set up here, most hospitals can't do this, but
Right.
here, all of the, with a couple of exceptions, all of the providers who specialize in MS are in the
Mm,
same building.
right.
So whether that person is an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a physical therapist, a neurologist,
Right.
neuropsychology, um, the MS nurses, every other
Mm,
physiatry,
yeah.
everyone is in the same
Yes.
building. The
Which I
MRI
love
is
that.
also in that
Yes.
building.
Yeah.
So that does make it really convenient for
Especially for us,
people.
when we get there and we're just kind of like tired and overwhelmed and it's all in one spot. It very well thought out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really, really appreciated that. The other thing I wanted to ask you is I wanted just to ask you your favorite parts. And like I said to you, I wanted just to be conversational with you because I've known you for a while now and I followed you and I just love the stuff that we've been able to do together. And I wanted you just to tell me, as you've made this move with your family and all of that, what have been like the highlights for you in this move? I know you love the Cleveland Clinic. What are some of the things that you really liked or that you're working on that you didn't really expect? And you're kind of like, wow, this is so much more. I know obviously working with your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a partner in crime, so to speak, has been really, really great. I was looking forward to that. That was part of the reason I
Yeah.
accepted this job, was to do that. I'm trying to think about other things that have been surprising. Um, everyone is so welcoming and
Yeah.
friendly. Um, I mean, and I expected that, but I don't
Yeah.
know, somehow they like topped themselves in terms
Yeah.
of like how welcoming everyone is, how nice everyone is. And, right away they were saying, oh, we could use some help with this. Do you want to help out? And yes, of course I do. And,
That's
getting
awesome.
involved with things right away was really
Yeah.
nice, even though they hadn't really got to know me very well yet.
Yeah. Right.
Um, I think Cleveland, the city, is
Yeah.
kind of an unappreciated gem.
Yeah.
Um,
I
it
remember
kind of
going back
gets,
and forth there, and it was cold then. It was winter, but I remember just kind of go to see some of the things. I'm like, there's a lot more to do here than people give it credit for.
yes, definitely. And one of my favorite things is performing arts. And we
Yeah.
have a theater district, and there's like 4 or 5 different theaters. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a little Broadway,
Right.
which is fun.
Yeah.
And but overall, I would just say what what is offered to patients here,
Yeah.
I think is the biggest. Um, I expected a lot, but I think they
Yeah.
topped my expectations.
That's awesome.
I'm seeing a lot of, like I just recently saw a person who was diagnosed about 8 weeks ago, and
Wow.
she already has all of the referrals that I would
Wow.
would have wanted her to have,
Yeah.
including already seeing neuropsychology,
Yeah. Good.
and getting hooked up with services right away.
Hmm.
And, I think other places do that too. I'm not saying that they
Yeah.
don't. I just think, I really appreciate the emphasis on that here,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we're not going to wait.
Right.
We're not going to wait for you to develop a new symptom, or we're not going
Right.
to wait for your current symptoms to get worse. We are going
Right.
to get right on that.
And I did
And I
appreciate
think,
as well, you guys are really good about knowing that we forget everything and calling back and not getting angry that we forgot, but saying it's okay. We just want to get on top of it.
yeah,
And that I so appreciated because, it's a scary thing when you're like, what? Oh, I forgot again. And I had it on 4 calendars. How could I forgot?
yeah,
So it's just a really appreciated thing that I noticed. So I really love that when you're talking about the patient care over and above. It was just that over and above thing that didn't need to happen, where you're somewhere else and they're like, you just didn't show up, but we
yeah,
charged you. So I'm like,
yeah, yeah. I think that
so
they really, they they say, you can go on the Cleveland Clinic website and find out what their
mhm,
values are, what their morals are, and the way they run the business. And they put their money where their mouth is. So
right.
what they say is important to them is what they
Yes.
show is important to them.
Right.
And I appreciate
Exactly.
that as a
Absolutely.
provider, but also as a patient.
Yes, exactly. Because that's one thing, you hear that everywhere, but then you go and it's like, mm, not really.
It doesn't, yeah, sometimes it doesn't translate to the energy in the
Exactly.
place or the vibe, you know,
Yeah. Well,
and
I'm
and it
so
and it
happy
does
that
here,
you're
I think.
there. Oh, absolutely. And I love that you're there and you get to, because there's so much that you have to offer and to be in a place where you can do this. And tell me real, because I want to know about this. And I know I'm going to get the word wrong, especially after COVID right now. Is it not Zimpact? It's the where you can go to I know a lot of the states are open now. I don't remember how I haven't checked on it in a bit. How many states are open so that you could see someone in, a different and do a televisit or something like that.
Hmm.
How are we doing on that? How do you know how we are state-wise?
So I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many
I know
states
I'm
are
not either.
participating, but it's not just the states that have to participate, it's the provider.
Right,
So
right.
if I wanted to do that, there's extra things I would need to do,
Uh,
an extra certification, I think,
oh, I didn't know
or
that.
perhaps an extra license.
Okay.
And I think you may have to take like a short test, but
Okay.
I might be saying the wrong thing there. So
Okay.
don't quote me on that, but
Okay.
but yes, though there are extra steps. Once the state has approved it,
Uh-huh.
and providers who are licensed in that state can exercise the option of getting approved to do it as well.
Yes.
But yeah,
Okay.
I think that's, you know, this, I think it's only going to be a good thing. And
Yeah.
I
I know a
think,
lot of patients are starting to know about it and they're asking. And that's going to be, I think, a great thing because
yeah,
they're, like I'll interview someone and they'll ask, like, can I see them? And I'll say the word that I can't remember right now. And I'll say, check and see if, and so they'll do that. And
yeah,
some have been successful and been able to do that. I'm like, Michigan's not there yet, but a lot of states are. So check and see. And you may very well be able to see that provider.
yeah. So
Um,
for site, I don't know how it works for medical providers because they have a different type of license.
right,
But for
right.
psychologists, it's called
Exactly.
PSI-PACT.
Pack. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, for the psychology, because they'll see, they'll want to go with one that like I have on an interview. And I'll say, well, you got to check that out, but definitely and be looking for it to come to your state because they are getting more and more states.
Yeah.
So which I
Well, and I
think is going
think,
to be gorgeous.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
I think
off.
it's going to be great.
It is going to be great. And I think um, one of the benefits of COVID, which I know that sounds weird to say that COVID brought
No,
any
there
kind of
were
benefit,
benefits.
but I think one of them was how much we need telehealth services. You know, a lot
Yes.
of healthcare providers, a lot of like healthcare organizations were offering that on a very,
Yeah.
very, very limited basis before COVID. Um, the VA, I think, is an exception to that. So in my
Mhm.
old job, I also used to work in the VA, and
Okay.
they already had some infrastructure for that. So when COVID hit,
Oh, interesting.
it was interesting because I worked at two different organizations when
Right.
COVID hit, and so I kind of saw how it played out differently.
Right.
Um, but I think telehealth is here to stay
Yeah.
for psychological services, for medical
Right.
services. And I think that's a good thing. And I think,
Yeah.
we as people who care about people with MS, we knew how important that was before
Right.
COVID,
Right. I
but
mean, it's
it
made it
wasn't
so
always
much
an
easier.
option. And now
Yeah.
it is.
I can see
So
so many patients come like doing their telehealth visits that would never do it before.
yeah,
They would go rarely. And I'd say, like, when have you seen your neurologist? When have you talked to your psychologist? I just can't. I can't do the drive. My eyes are bad. And waiting right now, I mean, oh, Laura, a lot of my clients are in California. The getting like back and forth, and they're so short on workers to get the transportation. It's
yeah,
horrific. I mean, we're talking 3 hours. They get to the appointment, they can't get seen. Then they're waiting 3 hours longer to get, whether it's freezing cold or whether it's hot. It's so ridiculous right now.
yeah,
So I think the televisits are just so crucial when they can be done.
yeah,
So I'm so grateful
absolutely.
for that. So
Absolutely.
I do believe, I think you're absolutely right. They're here to stay.
They
So
are, but
um,
I will say Megan Byer and Abby Hughes would be very upset with me if I did not mention that
yes,
it's not always the most appropriate way to deliver care. So
yeah,
especially if like you need to talk to a psychologist about something very serious,
yeah,
very heavy emotionally, sometimes that just needs to happen face to
yeah,
face because there's an element of that connection that
yeah,
is missing over
yeah,
telehealth. So,
yeah. No, I
you
can,
know,
I can see that.
listen to your provider, I guess would be what
Yeah,
I am saying that, if they recommend that you come in for certain sessions,
yeah,
then I do your best to make that happen.
right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's true. There's been times when, for myself, it was very emotional, and we had talked about that. Maybe I'd have to come in for one. So
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. If you're going to go see, like, for goodness sakes, listen to what they say.
Yeah.
So I agree. The one question, the last one, and then you go with whatever you want to say. I wanted to ask you if you could share whatever you wanted to say. You had one thing to say about MS, and if you could just plant something in to us, what would it be that you would say?
Well, I think
I
kind of,
loved the exercise stuff because I was like, you're speaking my language.
yeah, I mean, I think that is a big one for me, is rewriting your own rules for things,
Yeah.
whether that's about exercise, whether that's about, some of my patients are telling me that social outings drain them in a way
Yeah.
now that didn't happen before they had MS.
Yes.
Um, or now that they're a little bit older, they're more draining or something, and but they feel compelled to go do them. And I try to challenge that. I'm like, well, do you have to?
Yeah.
Or do you have to do it in the same way you did?
Yes.
Maybe before MS, you would attend the whole birthday party or
Right.
retirement party or whatever it is.
Right.
But maybe now you attend the first half or the
Right.
first half hour, or, I think so. I think rewriting your rules really
Yes.
applies in lots of situations,
Yes.
and you can give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
a tough to do. And that's why we need you guys,
yeah,
because it's really tough for us, especially as people pleasers. It's a tough one to rewrite because we think we have to make up for it with the kids, with relatives. We have to keep making up for it, making up for it.
right.
And it exhausts us. And then
It
we're no good
does.
to ourselves, to our body, to anything.
Well, I think that's the key, Kathy. You know, every person with MS has gone through some trial and error and has figured out, I can
Mm,
do X now instead of Y. Like
right.
you said it earlier. Well, I can't run a half marathon
Right.
anymore, but I could run maybe a mile
Right.
or half a mile. So why can't you do that with your own social engagements?
Right.
But relatedly, if you are constantly pushing yourself past your limit, then you're actually taking time away from other things that you would want to do because you're going to be down
Exactly.
for the count.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. I
It's a
love that.
delicate balance, it's
It
kind of
is.
like the teeter-totter. So you want to keep both people off the ground and not have it be
Yes.
too lopsided.
For sure. That's so true. And it is absolutely 100%. I love that you said that because I think that is a big thing to learn how to, whether it's exercise and changing that up, like we talked about, whether it's everything how much energy we have for socializing. I know for me with optic neuritis, really bad, my eye just hurts after because I love people. So I want to hear everything you're saying to me. Well, that takes a lot out of my eye.
Yeah.
And so it fatigues me. So when I'm done, it took a while for my husband to understand why I'm so tired and I can't talk after because I give everything I have to want to know about you and what you're saying to me. And so after I need a break and just from talking and my eyes so focused because
Hmm.
I really want to like I said, I love people. Obviously that's why I do a podcast. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know your story. I want to know how you fit into this. What is it that you offer to the community and to the world? And so, it is something that we have to understand. What can we do socially? So I love
Yeah,
that. And
absolutely.
so I am so appreciative that you got to do this with me. Next
Me
time, I want you and
too.
your partner. We'll do that.
Yeah,
And see, maybe in a few months after the new year, after all of this, we'll see what's coming on the horizon and how you guys work together. I would love to do that.
that sounds great. You're gonna like
Awesome.
her.
I know it'll be great. So, again, Laura, I love you. I'm so grateful to have you on
Well,
today.
thank you so much. I'm really very happy to be here, and I hope that this conversation is helpful to your listeners.
Oh, I know it will be. I know it will be. I know I'll get a lot of good feedback from this. And
Awesome.
Laura, where can they get a hold of you if somebody wants to get a hold of you?
So I think my Twitter handle is at Laura Hancock, PhD.
Okay.
Um, and that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I work at the
Okay.
Cleveland Clinic on the main campus in Cleveland, Ohio. So, and right now I do not participate in SciPact because we do the cognitive testing face to face.
Right.
So it would be very challenging to do that, but we certainly, it doesn't matter what state you live in as long as you come here for
Right.
the appointment.
Yeah, which I may be talking to you about soon.
Yeah, we can do
So
that.
All right. Well, I love you, and I know our listeners will get so much out of this. Laura, thank you
Great.
so much for giving us more information. I'm looking forward to catching up with you after the new year
Sounds
and
good. It's
your
my
partner in
pleasure.
crime. And just thank you. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I know that you've seen Laura before, and I hope that you got a lot out of this today. And really, the understanding that we need to have neuropsychologists and psychiatrists and just what Laura does. And I just already forgot the name of what exactly you do, a
Psychologist.
neuropsychologist. But I think you were called something else just for a minute.
I don't
Never
know.
mind. All right. My COVID is going away and my brain will be back next week. So have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this and can't wait to see you guys back. Thank you, Laura, again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Move It or Lose It podcast, where you can again find us every Tuesday and also wherever you like your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Join us on that. And we can't wait to see you again. We're going to have a lot of exciting guests and working together. And as always, you'll hear us say at the end of every podcast, we are stronger together. So let's do it. Let's become stronger together. Have a great day.